Since the release of their second album, Panic at the Disco have split up and brought back the exclamation point. And now, after 3 years of waiting, Panic has finally unveiled their third album, Vices and Virtues. When I was 14 years old, Panic at the Disco released their first album, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, and it was probably the best thing ever. Then a few years later they released their second album, Pretty Odd, which was totally different from their first album, and at first I didn't like it that much, but now I definitely appreciate it and love it. So, needless to say, I have been extremely excited for their third album, Vices and Virtues. I was personally hoping that they would take a step back to their first album and the style of that one versus kind of the retro style of Pretty Odd. And like I said, as much as I love it now, it was just not what I wanted to hear, and not what most people wanted to hear following Fever. So in 2009, when the band broke up and Ryan and John went one way and Brendan and Spencer stayed with Panic at the Disco, I got kind of excited because even though Ryan obviously was the lyricist for all the songs, for most of the songs, I was thinking, you know, Ryan seemed to be the driving force of Pretty Odd's style, so maybe we will take a step back toward the exclamation point era, and sure enough, they brought back the exclamation point. So I was very excited, and when they released the Ballad of Mona Lisa, I got even more excited, and I saw them live, their first show playing brand new songs, and the songs sounded awesome, like old school Panic, and so I really could not wait for Vices and Virtues. And now that I have heard the whole thing, I have to say that I absolutely love it. There are good things and bad things about it, but the good definitely outweigh the bad for me. And the easiest way that I can explain how this album sounds compared to their other albums is, it is the style of A Fever You Can't Sweat Out and the style of Pretty Odd mixed together under the veil of New Perspective. Now this makes sense because New Perspective was the first song that was just Brendan and Spencer, so it makes sense that it sounds like that, obviously. But the best part about Vices and Virtues is that you can feel Brendan and Spencer having a blast recording it and just putting it together. It sounds like they're having so much fun, and you can really feel that. It absolutely comes across in every single song, and I love that. I absolutely love that because it feels so real and honest. And you know, that just makes me so happy that you can really honestly tell that they were having fun, and that's really important, obviously. Now, like I said, there are good and bad things about Vices and Virtues. I will start with the bad, and it's not even things that are bad, it's just things that I don't like, because the album is great, overall. But the one major thing that I don't like is that this is probably their least unique, I guess, if that's the right word, sounding album of their 3 albums. The first one, obviously, is very unique. The second one is very unique compared to the first one. And then the third one is relatively unique compared to their last 2. It's like they're a whole different band every album they release, but these songs are probably the most, not generic, but along the lines of generic. I guess it's the most mainstream, you could say, album that they've put out so far. The most listenable, which obviously this is a good thing that it's the most listenable album, and I feel like it will be the most widely accepted album, but I love the fact that they were so unique on their previous albums, and you could say Pretty Odd wasn't really unique, but you know what I mean, unique to today's music. So that is the only thing I don't like, just the fact that it seems like not that they played it safe, but the album feels kind of safe, but the fact that you can feel them having fun while making it, while listening to it, really, you know, kind of fixes that for me. So that's my only negative thing about it. Everything else, I have to say, is very, very positive. Like I said, Ryan wrote most of the lyrics in the last 2 albums. He wrote, I think, all the lyrics on Fever, and he wrote most of them on Pretty Odd, but I think that everybody kind of put their own stuff into the whole album. So obviously, we have to consider the lyrics on this album because Ryan is gone now. I think that the lyrics definitely hold up. I think that they did a great job. I think it was mostly Brendan that wrote lyrics, but obviously I'm sure Spencer did stuff too. I don't know, so don't hold me to that. But I really think they did a great job, and I'm surprised because being that Ryan wrote most of the lyrics in the past, I was worried that the lyrics were really going to suffer a lot, but I definitely love the lyrics. There's a lot of lyrics in here that I think to myself, that's really, really great. You know, really great writing, really great lyrics. So that's awesome. That means that they can keep going forward like this. You know, it didn't give them too much of a hit that they, you know, can't continue writing in, you know, the same way they did for Vices and Virtues. So I'm very happy for them in that respect. I think they did an excellent job on the lyrics. I would say that 50% of the album sounds similar, like the songs sound very similar and they kind of have a similar setup. The verses and then the chorus, it's kind of almost like a formula. They sound like they're going with a formula a little bit. And then the other 50% are very kind of different from the other half of the album, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So right off the bat, we start with The Ballad of Mona Lisa, which we've heard before, of course. It was the single that was released in the first music video. Great song, everybody loved it, and that got everybody very excited. Then we go into Let's Kill Tonight, which was the first brand new song that I heard at the first show where they played new music, and as soon as it started, I was like, this sounds awesome. And sure enough, it is awesome. Now, it's a little weird because it's got this weird effect over Brendan's vocals for the beginning of it, and it almost sounds like this thing was recorded using GarageBand on a MacBook or something. But once the chorus hits, you realize that that is great because it kind of has this almost tinny and like cheap sound to it, and then the chorus hits really hard, and you realize that it was a perfect way to build up to an awesome, awesome chorus. And then the rest of the song sounds great. So I love Let's Kill Tonight. That really kind of set the bar for me for this album because I knew that, you know, it was kind of going back to this sound, this almost electronic Fever era sound, really. And, you know, it definitely sounds like what we expected to come on the second album following A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, so that's really cool. Then we've got Hurricane, Memories, and Trade Mistakes. Now these are the songs that I'm talking about when I say that some of the album sounds like one long song. Starting kind of with Memories, it almost sounds like they're following a formula because it's like very similar because the verses are great, but then the choruses are awesome and really, really catchy and really get stuck in your head. But that's these three songs together, one after the other, and I keep thinking to myself, like, oh, this is the best chorus when I hear Hurricane. Then Memories comes on and I'm like, no, this one's better. Then Trade Mistakes comes on and I think, oh, okay, this chorus is the best one. And each one, in my opinion, gets better and better, but like I said, they almost sound like one long song, never ending, and they sound like they're following a formula. So it's kind of weird, I don't know, but that's the first thing I thought after I listened to those three songs. So hopefully that makes sense. And then we go on to Ready to Go, which sounds like the most pop-ish song of all of them. To be honest with you, it almost sounds like Panic are covering a Katy Perry song, which, I don't know, that's really weird, I guess, but maybe you can kind of see what I mean by that. Then at this point, the album switches to the more unique songs, which is really weird because usually I like the first half of an album a lot more than the second half, but this one is where it gets more unique, I think, to the rest of the album in the second half, if hopefully you understand what I'm saying. We have Always, which is a beautiful, beautiful acoustic song, and then it becomes like this sweeping, you know, violins and stuff like that, and I absolutely love this song. Then we go on to The Calendar, which is a little bit more along the lines of those three that I said sounded similar, but this one I think sounds different enough to separate itself. Same goes for Sarah Smiles. It is, I think, different enough to separate itself from those three that I said almost felt like they were going with a formula, and so therefore The Calendar, Sarah Smiles, Always, I think that those are kind of the more unique tracks on the album. And we finish up with easily the most unique, strangest, most awesome song on the album, Nearly Witches. You can tell that this was their song where they were like, you know what, we're gonna do whatever the hell we want. Because it starts off with kids singing in French, then there's like, well, you know, there's like creaky floorboard sound effects and stuff in this song, and it's just so crazy, and it's really what I love about Panic is this song. This is the perfect Panic song, and I think that's awesome that they finished with it. Obviously, everyone was looking forward to hearing the full version after the demo was out there for so long, years ago, and I'm really happy that they finish up the album with this because it's just a perfect way to kind of tie it all up and say, we're back, awesome music, hope you enjoy, whatever, and I very much did enjoy it, and I think that's awesome. And the one other thing I'll say, because I'm just talking about the actual album, not like bonus tracks, iTunes bonus tracks, whatever, Oh Glory Demo is amazing. I don't know why it's not on the damn album because it is awesome, 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 and I've been listening to it nonstop. And yeah, I don't know why they just scrapped it and made it a demo, but whatever. That was an odd thing for them to do. I think it's awesome, and I think it should have been just on the album as, you know, legit, not a bonus track. So obviously I love Vices and Virtues. Like I said, I think that the only thing I dislike about it is that it seems like the most mainstream and not generic, but you understand what I mean, of their albums. But that doesn't make me love it any less because, you know, as a standalone, it's fantastic. All of the songs get stuck in my head. They are so damn catchy. I would obviously say if I didn't love the album, because I didn't love Pretty Odd upon first listen, although like I said, I do love it now after listening to it over years. But yeah, I'm very happy with Vices and Virtues, as I'm sure many or all Panic at the Disco fans will be. They haven't necessarily taken a step back to A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, because I wouldn't want them to take a step back, even though the way I word it is that I want them to go back to that sound. You don't want them to take a step back, you want them to progress, you know, and I think that they have progressed, because like I said, it almost feels like, you know, when you're listening to it, you can hear A Fever You Can't Sweat Out and Pretty Odd styles, but it's kind of all meshed together, and it sounds like they just, you know, they put it all together and they grew up and matured, so it's exactly what we should have expected, which is awesome, and I'm very happy. I'm a very, very happy Panic at the Disco fan, when I never thought, or I didn't know if I would ever be a very happy Panic at the Disco fan again. I was worried, but, you know, Panic is back, and that's it. That's all I can say. I'm very happy with Vices and Virtues, and I think they did an excellent job. Let me know in the comments what you think of Panic at the Disco's third album, Vices and Virtues. Let me know what you thought of A Fever You Can't Sweat Out and Pretty Odd, and, you know, that in comparison to Vices and Virtues. Let me know if you agree or disagree with how I feel about the fact that it's kind of like their most mainstream, and the fact of, you know, 50% sounding like one long song and the other 50%, roughly, being more unique. Let me know what your favorite song is, or what your favorite songs are, if not all of them. And that's pretty much it. So damn happy, guys. So happy. Yeah.